Hello and welcome to our fourth virtual memory box.
Bienvenue à notre quatrième boîte à souvenirs virtuelle.
And now we might look a little bit underdressed or a little informal, but we decided to wear some plaid today in honor of today's subject matter.
Fait que c'est ça, on s'est dit qu'on allait porter notre plaid, notre motif de carreaux en honneur du sujet d'aujourd'hui,
Humphrey Woolen Mill.
le moulin Humphrey.
So, people talk about Humphrey, an area of town, Humphrey, that was incorporated later on into the city of Moncton. Louisville, Sunnybray, and Humphrey, they talk about, was named because that whole area grew because of John Humphrey's woolen mill.
OK, ben c'est ça, t'as comme quelques parties de Moncton qui est nommée d'après différentes choses, de Louisville, Sunnybray, puis Humphrey, c'était d'après ce monsieur-là. Là.
Yep, so he started one of the early industries, a woolen mill, but he didn't start it himself.
Fait que c'est un moulin de textile.
That's it, yeah. Pas une scierie, not a sawmill, right? It was a grist mill, they called it. So he wanted to come into textiles, so he moved to Moncton and built his house in around 1871.
OK, oui, une belle maison sur la rue Mill, c'est ça?
Still there.
Encore là.
And what's cool about that, I promised someone I would talk about the house. So that house that's still there is Queen Anne Revival.
OK, ça c'est le style architectural de la maison?
That's right.
Le style Queen Anne.
That's right. But early and transitioning out of Gothic Revival. So it's kind of two.
Néo-gothique aussi.
That's right. You see that because Queen Anne was as asymmetrical as you could make it. This one is very, very symmetrical. So a central tower, two bay windows. So everything about it kind of doesn't say Queen Anne, but the details are very Queen Anne. So it's a transitional house, yeah.
Okay. Fait ornementalement, c'est très Queen Anne, mais étant donné que c'est symétrique, c'est un peu plus néo-gothique.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So that was his house, and the reason he moved there is he got implicated with a Mr. W.C. Snow, who already had a small little mill.
OK, d'accord. C'était comme un partenaire en affaires.
Yeah, and so within a year, he was doing so well that it became Humphrey and Snow.
D'accord. Le moulin a changé de nom, là.
Right, because that's where his level was. Now all of a sudden he was a partner with Mr. Snow already. A few years after that, he buys out Mr. Snow and then becomes J.A. Humphrey and Son, William F. Humphrey.
OK, là, c'est vraiment devenu son moulin, à lui et son fils.
That's it, and he grew so fast and so well. It was the biggest one in the Maritimes. It was huge. And then, so that's 1889. He and his son become this entity, and they started producing something called Humphrey cloth.
Ah oui, c'est ça. Il était connu pour un certain textile, un certain tissu.
It was good quality, durable. So you actually saw it in rugged things. Eventually, during the war, they would use that fabric for army equipment, like uniforms and stuff. So known for its durability.
C'est ça, c'était durable.
Yeah.
Tu peux aller dans tous les éléments dehors, puis
That's right. So he dies in about 1895, but then throughout the 6 decades of this company's history, you get William F. taking over, and then William M. takes over after that, up until the 1950s, when it's bought out by an Ontario company called Collie. They had a mill in Ontario, and they bought this mill. It was one of the biggest producing mills in Canada.
Fait que ça a changé de nom plusieurs fois, ou ça a changé de main plusieurs fois. Ça n'a pas nécessairement resté dans la famille Humphrey.
It did for about 6 decades, but it was Humphrey, J. Humphrey and Son Limited, because there was always a Humphrey and a son.
Okay.
That kind of did it. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people really knew this stuff, and some people might not remember the Humphrey cloth because that's way at the beginning, but that Humphrey cloth under, I believe it was William F., that this traditional black and red tartan color, the Mackinaw color, became something that everybody in Canada had one of these high quality for hunting or working. I mean, this is a durable wool piece.
Ça, c'est incroyable. Parce qu'on connaît ce motif-là. C'est très canadien. Ça a commencé avec le moulin Humphrey, ici, à Moncton, le Mackinac, le motif Mackinac. Fait que noir et rouge, on le voit un peu partout.
It's today, even today,
Wow.
we see it everywhere. Yeah.
Est-ce que vous en avez à la maison? On veut voir. Si vous avez des photos, montrez-nous votre motif noir et rouge ou même d'autres motifs juste pour le fun. Là.
Yeah, and you'll know it because they tag just about everything.
Ah, ils mettaient des étiquettes sur à peu près tous leurs produits pour faire sûr que c'était identifié.
That's right. So we have a few of them, and it's going to say Humphrey all over it. So we do have Humphrey pure wool cloth, Humphrey Wayfarer 100% wool. And at the beginning, when they were small, it was really, I mean, a lot of local people worked there. The wool was local, but when they started adding buildings, because they couldn't keep up, they started having to import wool from other places, in addition to the local wool, but they were huge.
Ben, c'est ça que tu disais, ben, j'ai entendu dire qu'en 1905, à peu près, il y avait plus de 17 édifices qui faisaient partie de ce moulin-là. C'est énorme, là. Puis plus que 100 employés à peu près.
That's right. Well, if you look at the aerial shots even today of just those few buildings, it seems big. But when you include what they had in 1905, 17 buildings, the whole thing was about 5 acres. The dam was up the brook, so it was a real. That's how it kind of grew as a city. 100 plus employees in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
C'est impressionnant. Puis tu parles d'une source d'eau. Est-ce qu'ils utilisaient vraiment une roue hydraulique pour
They
la
did.
production?
Some people talk about. There's a little quote that he started, but not with nothing but a stream.
OK.
He literally plucked himself at Humphrey Brook.
Commencez là.
That's it, yeah. So a water wheel was the first, but the output just wasn't there. So they go to coal, go to oil burners and steam powered.
Ah, OK.
Yeah,
Avec le temps et l'évolution des technologies, là, ils ont passé par...
Always modern.
Toujours resté contemporain, c'est bien.
Yeah. So that's what helped them stay up the leading edge was not just the quality. They did build their whole business on quality. Not even marketing, just quality. They were sending out really good products, but modernization to keep up with demand. So not only was it good quality, you could get it. It was always available because they produced so much of it.
C'est une bonne philosophie pour une compagnie, la qualité. Et puis la production était quand même très impressionnante. Je pense que vers les années 1915, ils produisaient plus dans une semaine, ou autant dans une semaine qu'ils produisaient dans un an. Dans les 1800, c'est ça?
Yeah, that shows you the difference. When it was he and Mr. Snow, in the 1880s, 1890s, by 1915 they're producing as much in a week as they did in a year. And in order to produce that much, they were working on average like 305 days a year.
OK, là, ça roulait là, toute l'année longue.
Constant, yeah.
Wow!
And if,
Mais il y avait des bonnes conditions, hein? les
yes,
employés?
absolutely. Yeah.
Ça.
You hear that a lot. We talked about Marvin's and having long-term employees, 30 years, 40 years. It seems like this was non-union, but they had paid vacations.
Ah, il n'y avait pas de syndicat, là?
No, for 100 some people working in a mill, no unions, paid vacations, some sort of group insurance with hospitalization coverage.
Wow.
It really was something else. And during the summer, you would stop at noon on a Friday and have the weekend off. He really took care of his people, and that's why you get people to stay for 30 years.
C'est beau, c'est ça. Ça fait penser à Marvin's aussi.
Yeah,
C'était
yeah.
des bons employeurs dans le temps.
Yeah. So, other than that, we have a few artifacts.
Ça.
But this stuff got used, right? I mean, these were people. It wasn't formal wear. This
Non,
would have been
c'est
worn out in the woods.
utilitaire.
Yeah.
Ouais, je vais aller chasser. Puis
Yeah. This is actually a hunting jacket
Ah.
that was owned by a J. David Murdoch around 1950. It was donated, it says here, by Susan Murdoch in his memory. So didn't work for them, but owned this coat. Really, really good. You can tell it was worn, but it's in beautiful, beautiful condition.
Oui.
That told you about pride of ownership, but also the quality of the dyes and the workmanship that
Ben
it's still
oui,
here.
ben
Yeah.
oui, c'est quand même, ça a duré longtemps. Puis regarde comment c'est rouge encore, là. C'est très très riche en couleurs. Le noir il est quand même rendu gris, c'est quand même impressionnant.
Reds and blues in historic dyes tend to be the ones that lose their color the fastest.
Oui, c'est vrai, tu vois souvent les rouges qui sont rendus plus comme
Rose,
rose,
yeah.
ouais.
And you find blues, if they were cobalt blue, turned to like a gray.
Ah, ok.
So, but the fact that this red stayed red, I mean, they dyed it themselves, all that stuff. They had a
Wow.
building just for dyeing, a building just for this or that. So, but stuff like this we did get. These are, because everything was woven, they were woven materials, so this is called a shuttle. So anybody out there that knows looms and weaving, if you did it by feet, you had the feet that would alternate the threads, and you'd slide the shuttle through and slide it through and switch them and shuttle. So these were big industrial ones. What would that be in French? A shuttle.
Un shuttle? Ben, si je pense à le mot shuttle pour comme une navette, là, pour t'amener d'une place à l'autre.
C'est une navette.
C'est une navette.
Yep. So same idea. A shuttle. So
ça l'amène d'un côté
that's it, and that's kind of where the word shuttle, when we talk about moving things short distances, it's a shuttle. So the shuttle would only slide back and forth the width of your textile. So that is a shuttle. So yeah, and that, does it say Humphrey's on it? No. Lowell, Massachusetts is where that's from. Is where they would have bought it, but that would have been one of the.
Et ça c'était pour le tissage, le processus de tissage.
That's right.
Navette.
They did have a Royal Canadian tartan, so again that's a string of labels.
C'est ça, ils ont fait un tartan, le Canadien royal, un tartan Canadien royal.
But during the war, that was probably one of their most prosperous times. They actually had to ramp up to about 3 shifts a day to produce enough yardage of material to support manufacturing uniforms and stuff for the army.
Pour l'armée.
Yeah.
Fallait vraiment
So
qu'en
40 to
produise
45.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ouais, quand même. Puis, c'est ça, je sais pas si vous savez c'est quoi un tartan. Moi, j'étais pas certaine avant quelques années passées. Là, c'était comme, c'est la journée tartan. Puis, c'était comme pas un tartan. C'est un motif carreauté, écossais habituellement, associé avec une famille. Mais c'est ça, il y a un tartan canadien royal. Puis c'est Humphrey qui avait fait le design ou qui avait juste produit les textiles?
I don't think they would have designed it, but they certainly mass produced it. So
Okay.
And Moncton just released not too long ago our official Moncton tartan.
Oui, ben c'est pour ça que j'ai appris qu'on
Yeah.
c'est quoi un tartan. Parce qu'on a un à Moncton, on le montrera.
Yeah. So a few other artifacts you see, like the letterhead or the invoices and things like that. Humphrey and Snow. So this actually is from the first company with Humphrey while still partner with Snow.
Homespun. Longtemps, ça, là.
Yeah, 1885.
1885. Parce que ça avait commencé en 81? Non,
Yes.
la compagnie.
He joined with Mr. Snow in 81, became a partner about a year or two later. Then by 89, buys him out. His son comes in and becomes J.A. Humphrey and Son Limited.
C'est ça.
Yes. So they didn't just produce these, although that's what people remember most, but if you may have at your house, if you see those tags, like I said, they put it on everything. You might have an old blanket, something that has that Humphrey thing. Send us a picture. Post a picture, show us what you have. We have some pictures like on our wall over here, but we'll superimpose them. There's a picture of the staff, and there's got to be 100 people in that staff picture. It's just what an enterprise.
Oui, hein? Puis moi, là, c'est sûr que la prochaine fois que je vais dans une friperie puis je vois des chandails carottés, je vais regarder pour l'étiquette Humphrey parce que c'est un vrai trésor, là.
It would, yeah. If you could manage to snag that. You'd look for this first and then rush over. Is it you want $2 for that? I'll take you $2. There you go. So that's one of the early industries of Moncton, and by the time he died, J.A. Humphrey, and the success carried on with the sons, he was one of the richest people in Canada.
Ah, wow.
So that's how big he was. He was so unique, and I think part of it was the quality, of course, but everything was done in-house. He had a building for everything. They didn't just bring in wool and refine it for material. They built stuff right on, they stitched it, they dyed it, they prepped the wool, everything.
C'est impressionnant. Puis c'est un peu dans la philosophie ou la mentalité d'aujourd'hui où on veut vraiment se concentrer sur le local, la production locale, les produits locaux. Puis lui, c'est ça qu'il faisait dans le temps, puis c'est ça qui était qui a résulté dans son succès. Il était rendu le plus riche au Canada avant qu'il meure.
Yeah.
Fait que, en tout cas, c'est quelque chose qu'on peut apprendre, là.
It also meant he was one of the highest taxpayers in Moncton as well, which
ouais.
is, that's one of the side effects of being rich. You're going to pay some taxes.
Contribuer à la municipalité.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool.
Ben, c'est ça. ça, ben merci beaucoup. On veut voir vos chemises carreautées ou vos motifs. Puis on vous verra la semaine prochaine avec un autre sujet.
Bye!